Good morning, guys. It's Miss Paula, and I'm here to share with you one of my favorite books, Noah's Ark, and it tells the true story from Genesis about the flood. Here we see a picture of God's creation. Here, the account doesn't begin with once upon a time because this isn't a fable or a legend or a Nobel Prize winning work of fiction. This true account begins with in the beginning, and the next word, God, verifies the author and the truth of the story. The creation does not need to be covered in detail here, but it should be understood that everything in the beginning was perfect. God's creation contained no flaws, no mistakes, no sin, and no death of animals or humans. The first man and woman were perfect until temptation and sin corrupted them. The Bible tells us that in Noah's day, that the people that lived there were very intelligent and they probably had very advanced civilizations. However, regardless of the amount of knowledge that had accumulated and to what extent their talents and skills became sharper and more refined, the Bible records that the wickedness of these people grew to an unimaginable proportion. We are told that they were evil, violent, and totally corrupt. The Lord was very grieved because of what man was doing, and he warned he would destroy the earth, including man and the land animals, beasts, flying creatures, and every creeping thing with a flood. However, there would be some special exceptions to this total destruction. Different land animals would be saved. Also, one man found grace in the sight of the Lord. His name was Noah. God promised that this very special man and his family, including his wife, 3 sons, and their wives, were going to be saved from this terrible judgment. God told Noah that he and his family have been chosen to begin life again on the other side of the flood. God instructed Noah to build an ark of safety that would not only protect his family through the coming flood, but would also preserve male and female of each kind of beast, flying creature, and creeping thing. God gave Noah specific instructions on how to build the ark and what to do. So with the help of his 3 sons and possibly others, the great work began. To build the ark of such proportions as the Lord had detailed must have seemed to be a great task to Noah. But not only had God given him his 3 strong sons, he promised to be with Noah every step of the way. The Lord would have made sure that Noah was able to obtain everything he needed. Noah's faith was surely magnified daily as the Lord overcame every obstacle for him. But there was one thing Noah had never seen and could never imagine what it would be like: a worldwide flood. It must have been nearly impossible for Noah to imagine the whole globe covered by water. How could he have convinced people that such an event was about to happen? The people had no evidence of any devastation like that would occur, but the Word of God said that it would. And when Noah spoke of it, most did not believe, and some even scoffed, calling him crazy. But God said it would happen, so there was no doubt in Noah's mind. He knew that one day that God would cause the waters to rise upon the earth and destroy the civilization he had lived in. Noah must have spent almost every day working on the ark and discussing what such a flood would do to the earth and how much progress they had made that day or building plans for the next day. Perhaps he and his family played music and sung praises to God for the promise of salvation he had given them. They must have worshiped God and thanked him for seeing them safely through another day. Being human, there must have been a feeling of anxiety that constantly overshadowed them. To think the world around them would be completely destroyed and that they would be the only survivors if no one else believed God's warning through Noah, which sadly is what happened, must have been an unimaginable thought. Perhaps the men had to hike over the hill and down the adjacent valley to gather timber. The days must have seemed longer and harder. Progress must have even been slowed as the distance from the ark to find wood and the work never ceased. Day after day, it must have had to be continued. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, months turned into years. The project was nearing completion. Now something else that had never been seen before started to happen. Exactly how it happened, we aren't told, but it may have been like this. Every day, new animals were coming to the areas near the construction site. There were big ones with fur or horns, or smaller ones with long tails that did funny things, short ones with masks, and long ones with stripes, and beautiful birds of all kinds. All of these animals were gentle, and no one knew that they had been sent to go aboard the ark. What a marvelous God to create such variety, Noah must have exclaimed. And we picture Noah sitting by the stream, and he must have been worshiping to see such a great sight. After the last timber had gone into place, it must have taken the people quite some time to seal all the joints in the shell of the ark, but it was finally done. The construction part of the project was finished. Noah and his family would have rejoiced and given thanks to God, and then it must have started. If we had been there, perhaps we would have seen them begin to stir. Not just a few, but all of them at once. It was like someone turned a switch, and every animal that had come to the ark responded to the same moment. It was sudden, just deliberate. They all stood up together and slowly began moving towards the ark. Noah and his family must have watched in amazement at the orderly procession. There they are. In his heart, Noah saw the people reject God's warning. He might have asked, how can even the animals know what man cannot comprehend? Put yourself there and imagine. As far as the eye could see, they came. This march was being orchestrated by God himself. The great conductor was leading a symphony of animals, calling to each one in a voice that only they could hear. And so they came. By the thousands they came. It took a week to load and place all the animals. Noah and his family and all the animals had been gathering inside the ark for 7 days, settling in, preparing for something they had never experienced nor witnessed before. God's instructions had been followed, and only one detail was left. The door of the ark had been open since it was built, perhaps for a number of years, a standing invitation for anyone to enter in and be saved from the coming catastrophe. But no one outside Noah's family came because no one believed. Mercifully, the door was left open the last 7 days. But what are 7 days to years? The fact that the door still open didn't matter to the mocking crowds outside the ark. Finally, on the 7th day, God shut the door. This was the day for which Noah had waited more than 100 years. He knew that the great event was only moments away. The noise level inside the ark must have been deafening as all the animals raised their voices. The thought must have crossed Noah's mind that this could be their way of rejoicing over their deliverance from what was about to happen. The most amazing thing was that they were all able to fit in the ark with room to spare. It was possible that Noah may have been concerned that some might be too large. However, even for the large dinosaurs, God most likely sent average-sized young adults. The new earth would be started by young animals and young families. In your mind, put yourself in the ark. Let yourself dream a little. The noise had dropped. The animals had grown quiet. They all stood up together and marched to the ark. Now they were all lying down together and becoming still. Instinctively, everyone looked up and for a moment stood in breathless silence, listening and waiting. And from that time now, every flood has had its beginning with one single drop of water. A rumbling noise shakes the earth. Suddenly the fountains of the great deep burst open, erupting with such tremendous force. The water and debris shoot high into the sky. Earthquakes break open huge cracks in the land. People begin running in all directions trying to escape. Volcanoes erupt, sending plumes of ash and rock into the sky and raining down fireballs for miles in all directions. Then it starts to rain. The drops become a shower. The shower becomes a downpour. The downpour becomes a raging torrent, and the great flood comes upon the world. Water from the sky above and water from the earth below. And this is just a little recorded in Genesis chapter 6 through 9, that the days on the ark were 371 days. The thunderclaps and explosions and jarring vibrations continued for days. The ark was tossed and spun and tipped and flung, but it never capsizes. The passengers of the ark cling to one another and pray. The waters prevail and greatly increase on the earth as the ark begins to move about on the surface of the waters. The waters prevail exceedingly on the earth, and all the high hills under the whole heaven are covered. What a scene has been imagined. But it may have looked something very much like this. What was it like to be in Noah's shoes? What was the life aboard the ark during the flood? The Bible tells us very little about this time, so we can only speculate. After 40 days and nights of rain, thunder, noise, and endless rocking of the ark, the 40 days arrived. Noah was barely asleep. He lay at twilight in a kind of slumber, but it felt good to rest there in the quiet of the new day. Wait a minute, he thought. Why is it so quiet? He opened his eyes and knew something was different. Noah arose and moved towards the light filtering in from above. He reached out for the ladder and climbed. Some of the animals turned their attention to their master. He climbed to the highest level where the opening ran the length of the ark. His eyes smarted from the brightness of the light, the glorious light. This glorious, wonderful light was the dawning of a new day and a new world. The emotions of excitement, wonder, gratitude, and a sense of loss overwhelmed Noah at once. The rain had stopped. He covered his eyes, bowed his head, and wept, thanking God and praising God for his protection. Noah's eyes slowly adjusted to the light, and he looked out upon the endless sea in awe and wonder. As he gazed on the emptiness, he found a deep sadness for the lost and beautiful world that was now gone forever. A world that God himself had created and called very good. That world would never again be seen with human eyes. Today marked the beginning of a new history. That night, the sky presented a wonderful spectacle. The lucid sky was so brilliantly lit with stars that they felt that they could reach out and take hold of anyone that passed. They remained there gazing at the stars until well past their usual time of sleeping. Few words were spoken. The days ahead were filled with activity as everyone adjusted their life aboard the ark. There was plenty of work to do. Nobody was bored. Caring for the animals was a big job, but Noah and his family had little else to do except take care of themselves and their precious cargo. God had prepared every animal for this period, so there were no predators attacking prey, no animals trying to escape from the ark. This period was peace and harmony. There were probably no sickness or death aboard the ark. The Bible records that from the time that God had shut the door of the ark until now had been about 5 months. Such a long period of the ark living must have been tiresome. They were ready to get their feet on dry land again. The waters were receding now, and the level was decreasing daily. One day there was much excitement on the ark when suddenly a jolting vibration shook the great ship and everything in it. The ark had landed. The great vessel had come to rest on the top of the mountain. Noah and his family continued to wait for the earth to dry and for God's timing. Finally, in the 9th month, Noah sent out 2 birds, a raven and a dove. The raven found something to scavenge. It did not return. The dove, however, found no place suitable to land, so it returned to the ark. A week later, Noah sent the dove out again, and it came back with an olive leaf. A week later, Noah let the dove go once more, and this time it never returned. Finally, the day came when God instructed Noah to leave the ark. He told Noah to bring out his family and every living thing that was in the ark. The ground was dry now, and having stayed in the ark for over a year, this was certainly an exciting day for the 8 people who had left the world behind and were stepping out into a vast new land. The first thing that Noah did after leaving the ark was to build an altar and offer a sacrifice to God for his bountiful goodness and mercy. God promised Noah that he would never again destroy the world with water and gave Noah a sign of his covenant, a rainbow. To this day, the rainbow is a reminder of the faithfulness of God and the obedience of a man wholly dedicated to God. Although man was corrupt, God provided a way for life to be preserved in Noah's day through an ark of salvation. Today, God has provided another ark of salvation so people can be saved. The Lord Jesus Christ, who died on a cross and was raised from the dead, paying the penalty for our sin. Jesus said, "I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved." John 10:9. The door is still open for all who will believe to enter. Thank you, guys.